Welcome, and thanks for stopping by the channel. Well, I finally did it. I've hit the 1,000 mile mark on this 2024 Plus wired cruiser. It's been 5 months since I received the bike, so I thought it'd be a good time to do an overview and a 1,000-mile impressions review. In today's video, I want to cover 3 categories of what it's been like to own this bike for the last 5 months. I'll start off with an overview of the bike, then tell you about some of the standout features, and then I'll go over the riding experience to this point. And stick around at the end, and I'll give you my final conclusions and wrap everything up. And I really appreciate you joining me for the ride today. It's going to be a beautiful day. Let's get started. I wanted to let you know that I did purchase this bike myself. This is not a sponsored video in any way, so these opinions are just my own. And I hope that they are helpful to you if you own one of these bikes and you're wondering what it's like down the road. After doing my research and watching nearly every YouTube video on e-bikes that I could find, I decided what I wanted was a faster e-bike, a 60-volt system with a high wattage motor and a high amp controller. So that, in the end, that narrowed the field down quite a bit. At the time when I purchased this bike in mid-May of 2024, there was just a few bikes out there that were in 60-volt range, and this was one of them. When I say I wanted a 60-volt system, what that means is that the motor, the controller, and the batteries are all 60-volt, so they match. You need the voltage to match for everything to function properly. This immediately stood out to me as being the best bang for the buck, and ultimately that's what I ended up going with, is around the $2,000 price bracket. I couldn't find a better bike that looked like a bicycle, so I wanted a larger frame as well to handle my size, where I'd be comfortable with a pedal stroke being 6'5" and 260 pounds. And this bike fits all those criteria. When I purchased the bike in May, I paid the same price that it's listed for today on the website. It's $2,000. With shipping fees and taxes, it came to a total of $2,350. Before I go over the standout features on this bike, I wanted to stop and pull over here to the side and show you what the actual mileage is. You see it in the bottom right corner. 1,001 miles. And total ride time of nearly 60 hours. Got 3 more minutes to make it to 60 hours. Everything starts here with this 1,500 watt motor that peaks at over 3,200 watts. It's incredibly powerful. 153 Newton meters of torque. Plenty of power to get you up those hills. Up to 40 miles an hour. If you're a little bit lighter weight, you can go beyond 40 miles an hour. Incredible motor. Inside this crank housing is the controller. It's a 45 amp controller. It's also potted, which means it's gel filled. It's got a thermal gel fill inside to help dissipate the heat. This controller also peaks out at over 48 amps. This bike now comes with 2 batteries. The front battery is a 60-volt, 20 amp hour battery that will give you 1,200 watt hours of power. Each of the 2 batteries has its own key. This is the larger key, goes in the front, used for the front battery. Put it in here, turn it counterclockwise 180 degrees. To release the battery, just push up on this, put your hand underneath, make sure that your wheel is cocked sideways. Just let that fall out, pull it out like that. You've also got an on-off switch. If you want to put this battery in and just go ahead and turn it off and just use your rear battery, you can do that. You have that option. That's the on position. You can also charge the bike with the charge port right here off the bike, or you can charge the bike on the bike right here with a port here. Show you some of the specs on the battery. It's a Samsung, they're Samsung cells, 60 volt system, 20 amp hour with 1200 watt hours of power. Then to put the battery back, you want to lower this bottom end in first, get it up near the lip, and then push it up until you hear the click. Once you've got that, just take your key out, lock the battery back in. Now the battery can't come back out. This is the rear rack battery. It's a 15 amp hour, 60 volt battery that has 900 watt hours of power. It has a different key, slightly smaller than the front. So I'll show you how to go ahead and remove that. Stick the key in. You've got to hold the key in this position, straight up. Feel for the lip behind the tail light back here. And with the key in the upright position, pull back on that. Release the key. Again, show you the specs. Samsung battery, 60 volt system, 15 amp hour with 900 watt hours of power. By the way, both batteries, they have kind of a fuel gauge. If you press this button, it's kind of bright out here. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but you can tell how much battery life you got in there with 4 bars. As you can with the front, the rear battery, you can charge the battery up either on the bike by this port, or by removing the battery from the cradle, taking it inside or somewhere else to charge it off the bike. It's pretty easy to put the battery back into the cradle. You've got a plate here with a groove in it that fits in here. So it'll guide you right in. Just get it up next to the cradle, give it a gentle push until you hear the click. According to Wired, you can get 80 plus miles of range out of these 2 batteries combined together, fully charged. I've done 2 range tests on this bike so far. I'll link those 2 videos in the description below. The front shocks are RST guide forks. You've got a preload lockout if you want to transport the bike on, say, a bike trailer, a bike rack, and you don't want it bouncing around, you can lock this shock out. You've got the ability with micro adjustments to adjust how stiff or how cushiony you want the ride. This bike also has a quick release front axle, through axle. It's nice, easier. You don't need any tools to take this wheel off. Say if you want to change the tube on the tire, you got a flat. You don't need any tools. You can just loosen this up, unthread it counterclockwise, take the tire off, pop the new tube in, pop it back on, put the through axle through, clockwise twist, then push it up to lock it. You also have 203 millimeter rotors, front and back, and you've got Gemma 4-piston hydraulic disc brakes. Very good brakes on this bike. This bike needs it because of the speeds it can do. The next big addition to this bike is the addition of a rear shock, an air shock. This is a D&M air shock. You got 3 levels of adjustment. This is the softest. Down is medium. To the right is hard. You've got a valve here for rebound adjustment. You can also add air to this shock right here with a high pressure pump, air pump, depending on your weight. So if you need to go up to, say, 200 psi or 250 psi, depending on your weight and what the manual says that you need to put in there, this is where you would add the additional psi. The bike also has a very bright headlight, 180 lux. Not sure what the equivalent of that is in lumens, but it does light up the night and your pathway. Very good for riding at night. You've also got a back tail light and a brake light. Let me see if I can reach the brake for you to demonstrate that. That's on, off, brake on. And you've also got a white light under there to add some additional illumination at night. During the first 1,000 miles, I really haven't had much in the way of maintenance issues come up on this bike. I regularly clean and oil the chain, keep it in pretty good shape. I did notice that this rack bracket connects to the frame right here. That does tend to loosen up. There is a little bit of play. You can slide this back and forth a little bit, and that brings your tire a little closer to your back fender. You might get a little bit of rubbing on that, so I do periodically check this, make sure this is, I loosen it up, pull up on the back side of this back rack, and then I tighten the bolts back down. It stays pretty good. I've only had to tighten that down a couple of times. I also regularly go around the bike and I tighten up all of the bolts, screws, nuts, anything that can work loose, just to make sure everything stays nice and secure. The next bit of maintenance I'll do is I'm going to put new brake pads front and rear on this. It's about time. Like I said, I got 1,000 miles on it, so I went ahead and ordered the pads. When they get here, I'll go ahead and change those out. This bike also comes with cruise control and walking mode. And how you get into that is, if you want to get into cruise control and you're rolling along, it's a long press on the minus button on the button cluster. And the same thing goes for walking mode. If you're at a stop, a long press on the minus button and it'll get you into walking mode. And that'll take you up to about 3 miles an hour. Nice walking pace. If you need any help getting up hills or any kind of rocky terrain where you don't feel comfortable riding the bike, total weight capacity on the bike is 400 pounds. So that's up to 350 for the rider and 50 pounds on the rear rack. And according to Wired's manual, this bike is built for people between the 5'5" range and 6'4" range. But they do give you they ship the bike with 2 seat posts. One 5-inch for the shorter riders and a 12-inch for the taller riders like me. So it gives you more flexibility for different heights. So I think you can see I've got my pedal stroke where I've got nearly full extension on my leg. I've got a 34-inch inseam, just for reference. Now when I stop, I'll show you, I do have to tippy toe because of that pedal stroke. I don't mind doing that because I like the additional power I get. So yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, but it's certainly doable. I do really like the understated look, the fact that it just blends in as a normal bicycle and doesn't draw any undue attention. And most people would not know, unless you're familiar with this bike, just how powerful this motor is. You've got 5 levels of pedal assist, by the way. I'm in gear 5, and if you're in pedal assist 5, be prepared. Better be holding on to these handlebars, because as soon as you do this, turn these pedals on this cadence sensor, this thing is going to take off. Here we go. We'll start off pedal assist 5. I'll crank it up to gear 7. We're already up to 25. 30. 34. 35. Now we'll do throttle only, see what we can get up to. 20, 30. 34. 35. 37. 38. 39. Looks like we're going to top out at 38 today. So I want to talk about the overall riding experience of this bike since I've owned it. You saw I just did a top speed run, so speed for an adrenaline junkie like me is the main reason I got this bike. I also like these BMX style handlebars and the upright riding position. I feel like if I'm sitting up in my seat, as I am now, pretty straight, I could still reach the handlebars. And I don't like necessarily at my age having to bend over and on a mountain bike style handlebar setup. I like it to be a little higher, a little more comfortable. And there were two things that Wire did that clinched it for me when I decided to buy this bike, and that was the addition of the second battery on the back, the 15 amp hour, and the rear suspension, that D&M air shock. The ride that you get with this and the amount of adjustability it has is just fantastic. It takes so much of the shock out of the bumps that you hit, even when you're off-road. It's not going to remove everything, but it does really help soften out that ride. I live in Gilbert, Arizona. It's one of the suburbs of Phoenix, and it does obviously get very hot here in the summertime, so we're not able to ride much in the daytime. So I wanted to get a bike with a really good headlight, and I thought this was a good headlight that came on this bike, but I wasn't sure. I thought, well, worst case scenario, I'll just change it out and put a brighter one on. So I do so much night riding in the summer. That might be unusual for a lot of folks. I would prefer to ride in the day as well, but don't really have that option in July and August, to be honest. So the front headlight really lights up the path in front of me. I'm really happy with the brightness level. I have no trouble seeing. That back tail light is visible. The back tail light also has a flash mode that you can set it in to draw more attention to you if you want to get people's attention at night. So I even keep the flashing tail light on in the day and the headlight. I figure additional safety factors can only help me. Before I continue on with the video, I want to just take a minute and ask if you've gotten anything out of this video, if you found it informative or helpful in any way. Really appreciate it if you could hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Really appreciate it. All right, getting back to the riding experience. In a series of 12 or 13 videos, I've really put this bike to the test. I'll leave links below to the different videos that I'll describe to you here in a second, and some of the tests that I put the bike through. And I'll leave those links in the description below. So one of the first tests I did, there was a big death wobble conspiracy. So I did a video on that one, and I did find that I couldn't get the wobble to replicate or to happen unless I induced it myself. I tried it at 3 different speeds, take my hands off the handlebars, and I did have the battery in the back on, and I tried it with it off. And either way, I couldn't get the wobble to happen. I did have to hit the handlebars like this to get it to kick in. And then it would wobble. You have to grab the handlebars pretty quick, but I don't really ride with my hands off the handlebars, so that hasn't been an issue for me. I also did a long-range 30-mile temperature torture test in the summer during the daytime to see what kind of temperatures I can get this motor up to see if I could get close to where it might shut down. Highest temperature I got up to was 294 degrees. At that time, on the first one, I've actually done 2 of these temperature torture tests. And the top end temperature tolerance on the motor is 355 degrees. And I found that out two ways. I had someone leave me a comment telling me that it was 355 degrees was the top end temperature before it starts to shut itself down. And the second way was in a 5 things video I did out at Canyon Lake, not too far from my house. 5 likes and dislikes video. Again, I'll leave the link in the description below. But I was going up this series of hills. Some of them were kind of steep, and this one in particular was a little over a mile long, pretty steep. It really tested the temperature on this motor and how high it could get. So I did get it up to 350 degrees, and I approached 355, and when I did so, the red light started flashing on the motor temperature in the upper right part of the screen. So as soon as I recognized that, I pulled over to the side and let it cool down for about 15 or 20 minutes. So that's how I actually know when this bike will shut off and how much you can get that motor up to. I also did a top speed video where I had flat level ground for about a mile continuous. I got it up to, I think it was 40 miles an hour, which is, for my height and size, I thought was pretty good. Now, the fastest I've ever gotten on this bike is 46 miles an hour. That was on a little bit of a downhill coming off of an overpass. So yes, it was cheating a little bit, but 46 on this bike is a lot of fun. I love those higher speeds. Coming from that motorcycle background, as I have for the last, well, I've ridden a motorcycle for the last 49 years, so I do have some experience with two-wheeled vehicles and high speed, high powered motorcycles. So this is the same thing in a bicycle version. I did another video where I changed out the tires to these HEB Allscapes that you see, front and rear. I like the fact that they're a little thicker than the stock tires that came on the wire bike, which are akin to Crusades. They're knobby tires and a little noisier, and they're definitely thinner than these HEB Allscapes. So I like the way these grip the road better. I like the handling characteristics better than the Kendas. And I like the thorn protection too. I think that comes with the thicker tires and thicker rubber. In addition to changing out the tires, I added flat out to help seal any punctures I might get from smaller thorns. I might be jinxing myself, but after a little over 1,000 miles, I'm yet to have my first flat. So I don't think that's by accident. I've certainly ridden this bike off-road on many occasions. Nothing real challenging or difficult where it would going over big, huge, sharp rocks, things like that. But the tires held up fine, and I think it's down to the composition of these thicker tires, tread pattern. I think the flat out has a lot to do with it. Now, I actually purchased those tires on Amazon before I even got the bike, because I knew that from watching other videos that those tires look to be pretty thin. So the higher speeds that these bikes can do are around 40 miles an hour. I just wasn't sure whether the composition, the makeup of that Kenda tire was going to be strong enough to withstand those higher speeds. So I didn't want to risk it, chance it. I just went ahead and ordered new tires right off the bat. So these tires have been on since I had 75 miles on the bike when I put the tires on. So 930 miles-ish on these tires so far, and they're holding up great. Again, the link is in the description below for that video. Cross lanes. This is where you hit that throttle. I love the power. If you're interested in the mountain climbing or the hill climbing capabilities of this bike with this 3,200 watt peak geared hub drive motor, I did a mountain climbing video up one of our mountains in South Phoenix called South Mountain. And it's about 1,000 feet of elevation change from the parking lot at the bottom to the top where you can see the lookout over the city of Phoenix and Tempe, all of the valley. It's beautiful views up there, so if you want to see how this bike handled going up a mountain, check out that video. As I wrap things up here, I'll go over some final conclusions of what it's been like to own this 2024 Plus Wire Cruiser over the last 5 months and 1,000 miles. I can just tell you that the number one thing I wanted to mention was just how much fun this bike is to ride. I have a choice between riding my motorcycle and riding this, as a lot of guys have both. But I find myself riding this more. It seems like it's just more fun to me because I can go different places. I can take this bike places I can't take my motorcycle. So I really enjoyed just the sheer fun factor of riding this bike and having all that power available to me. I don't use it all the time, but I do use it on occasion. And it's such an adrenaline rush, and I just love that rush of adrenaline every time I hit that throttle, just like this. I'll just got a little quarter-mile run right here. All you got to do is crank that throttle. I'm up to 30, 33, 34, just like that. This bike has a cadence sensor as well, which I like. And one of the benefits of this cadence sensor versus a torque sensor, the cadence sensor just gives you power to the motor. All you got to do is turn the pedals. And for people with mobility issues or any kind of knee problems, or you just don't quite have the power in your legs that you used to, cadence sensors work out really well. My knees are kind of shot after 5 operations, so I like just being able to turn the pedals and get power when I need it, depending on the pedal assist. So the second thing I like about this particular type of cadence sensor that Wire put in this bike is it comes in a percentage-based power distribution. So 5 levels of power assist. The first level comes shipped to you at 20% of the motor power. Then it goes up from there, 40, 60, 80, and 100% in pedal assist 5. But you can get in settings and you can actually tweak those. So because this is a percentage-based pedal assist system, you can actually tune the power assist that you're getting from the motor in each one of the 5 different levels of pedal assist, which is what I've done. I actually tuned them down. I think I went, pedal assist 1 was 12% of the motor power, 2 was 22%, 3, I think I've got that set at 35%, pedal assist 4, 50%, and pedal assist 5, I didn't take that all the way up to 100, I took it to 75, because 75% of the motor power on this strong motor will get you up to about 35 miles an hour. At least it does me. And if I want to go a little bit faster, I could just hit the throttle for that and get every little last bit of power out of that motor. And I adjusted those settings a little lower than the factory because when I'm riding around in my neighborhood and I'm only wanting to go about 15 miles an hour, 12 miles an hour, something like that, if I'm in pedal assist 1 at 20%, the bike will kick you up to 18, 19 miles an hour. That's how strong this motor is. So you can work with it, you can adjust it. That's why I like this particular cadence sensors, because some days the knees just aren't feeling it. I do like to pedal and get some exercise, but with this particular bike, you can pedal as much as you want. Don't pedal if you don't want, just turn it or use a throttle. You got so many options. If you want a little tamer start off the line when you're at a stoplight or stop sign and you want to take off and you don't want it to be a real powerful starts, you can adjust the throttle start strength. I would leave that in the highest level, which is 3. That'll give you your slowest takeoff speed. I typically leave mine in 0 because I want the full amount of power out of that throttle. If I'm sitting at a stoplight and you're on a main road where it's 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, when you hit that throttle, you can almost keep up with the traffic around you as you take off when that light turns green. That's a pretty awesome feeling. The question I had for myself at the end of this video, I wanted to ask myself at the end of this video rather, is even though things have moved on and there's some new bikes out now, and even Wired is making changes, like they've come out with their new 6,000 watt Predator dual motor version, which I would love to ride. I think that will be so much fun. But at the moment, I don't have any hills in my area. It's all flat where I live, so I don't really have anything to climb. I'm really happy with the power that this motor gives out, this 1500 watt motor, this 60 volt system, this 45 amp controller. If I had it to do again, I would buy the Wired Cruiser. I love the step through convenience that this bike offers. They do make the Freedom, which is a step over version. You get the bar across here. Probably a little bit more rigid for off-road use, but I don't really do that. So I love the convenience of just being able to step through here. They didn't put a water bottle holder on the down tube here, so it doesn't really interfere. A water bottle doesn't interfere with your feet as you take it through to the other side to mount the bike. I like that. I like the option of just being able to put my water bottle up on the handlebars. Keeps all that area clear. So those are my 1,000-mile impressions of what it's like to own this 2024 Plus Wired Cruiser. And I hope it's been helpful. Hope you've learned a few things. Hope it's maybe been a little bit entertaining along the way. I appreciate you joining me on the ride today, and we'll see you again in the next video. Take care.